Get out of here. This entrance isn't for people like you." Officer Ryan Cole's voice cut across the courthouse steps just as Maya Williams reached the top. He looked her up and down, slow and deliberate, eyes lingering on her camel coat, her leather briefcase, her polished shoes. "Let me guess," he said, loud enough for anyone nearby to hear. "You're lost. Service entrance is around the back." Maya stopped. The cold air bit into her skin, but his tone hit harder. She tightened her grip on the briefcase and held her ground. "I'm here for court," she said, steady. "There was a last-minute judicial reassignment this morning. You can call the clerk's office to confirm." Cole let out a short, mocking laugh. "Judicial reassignment?" He shook his head. "You really expect me to believe that?" He stepped down one stair, closing the distance, lowering his voice just enough to make it feel more personal, more threatening. "Black women in this building clean floors?" he said. "They don't walk through restricted doors acting like they belong in chambers." Maya didn't raise her voice. "You're making a serious mistake," she said. "Please contact administration." Cole's expression hardened. "What I'm looking at is someone trying to bluff her way into a secure courthouse. I'm not impersonating anyone." The moment she said it, he moved. He lunged forward, grabbing her collar and yanking her toward him. The force snapped her balance. Her briefcase slammed against her leg as she stumbled. His face came inches from hers. "You think this is funny?" he hissed. His breath hit her skin, sharp with stale coffee. His grip twisted the fabric tight against her throat. "You think you can lie to my face and walk in here like you belong? I can put you in cuffs so fast you won't even finish that sentence." Maya's heart pounded, but she didn't pull back. "Let go of me," she said. His grip tightened. "You don't give me orders," he snapped. "Women like you don't walk into chambers. Women like you clean the back halls and say yes, sir, when they're told." Then he dragged her. Without warning, he yanked her sideways and hauled her down the courthouse steps. Her heel slipped on the damp stone. The briefcase nearly tore from her hand. "Officer," someone shouted. Cole didn't stop. He pulled her across the entry path toward a custodian's cart mop bucket, wash basin, gray water sitting still beside the curb. Before Maya could steady herself, he shoved her. She hit the pavement with a sharp impact, hip first, then shoulder. Her body crashed into the basin. Dirty water splashed up, soaking her coat, her skirt, her hands. The bucket tipped, spilling a wave of murky water across the ground and over her briefcase. A ripple of gasps moved through the crowd. "Oh my God, did you see that? What is he doing?" Maya braced one hand against the cold pavement. The water stung the scrape on her palm as it soaked into her sleeve. She didn't cry out. Cole stood over her, chest rising, as if he had just done something justified. "I told you to get off these steps," he said. "Now stay out." People had stopped completely now. A clerk stared, frozen. The older woman stepped forward, hand pressed to her chest. "That was too much," she said. Cole shot her a sharp look. "Mind your business, ma'am." But the whispers had already started low, circling, feeding on each other. "Who is she?" "She said she was here for court. I've never seen her before. Maybe she's lying. Look at her. She doesn't look like she belongs here." Maya pushed herself up slowly. Water dripped from the hem of her coat. Her collar hung twisted where he had grabbed it. A streak of gray ran down the side of her briefcase, and she wiped it instinctively with her hand, as if protecting it mattered more than anything else. Inside, something had shifted. The shock was gone. What remained was sharp, steady anger. She had been awake since before dawn, reviewing emergency files in a hotel room after the call came in. The judge assigned to the morning docket had fallen ill overnight. Maya, a state judge from another county, had agreed to step in. She had come ready to hear motions, review pleas, make decisions that would shape lives before noon. Now she was standing outside, soaked in dirty water, while strangers decided who she was based on a glance. Cole looked down at her, unimpressed. "You should have walked away when I told you." Maya rose to her feet, still holding her briefcase. "You still haven't asked who I am," she said. Cole gave a cold, dismissive laugh. "I don't need to." Maya met his eyes. "That will be the biggest mistake of your life." For a fraction of a second, Something flickered across his face. "Get off courthouse property," he said. Maya stood there, soaked, humiliated, her breath visible in the cold air as the crowd kept staring, whispering, deciding. None of them knew the truth. And Ryan Cole, standing there with his badge, his authority, and his certainty, had no idea he had just assaulted the judge who would decide his fate. Maya stood motionless for one long second, dirty water dripping from the sleeve of her coat onto the courthouse stone. The crowd kept staring. Some looked embarrassed now. Others looked curious. A few still wore the same expression people always wore when they had witnessed something ugly and were already searching for a version of the story that would let them feel less responsible for seeing it. Officer Ryan Cole stepped back as if he had restored order. "You heard me," he said. "Off courthouse property. Now." Maya bent down and lifted her briefcase fully off the wet pavement. Muddy water streaked the leather, and one brass corner had scraped against the concrete. She ran her hand over it once, slow and deliberate, then straightened. Her palm stung. When she looked down, there was a faint smear of blood across the edge of her thumb. An older black woman from the lower steps came closer, despite Cole's glare. She was wrapped in a heavy wool coat and sensible shoes. The kind of woman who looked like she had spent her whole life surviving places that expected her gratitude for basic decency. "Ma'am," she said softly to Maya. "Are you hurt?" Maya turned toward her. Her breathing was controlled again, but barely. "I'll be all right," she said. Cole barked from behind them. "I said back up. Both of you." The older woman ignored him this time. She reached into her purse and pulled out a clean packet of tissues. "Take this, honey." Maya accepted it with a small nod. "Thank you." Up on the steps, a young courthouse clerk finally found her voice. "Officer Cole, maybe you should call inside," she did say. Cole spun toward him. "You want to do my job for me?" The clerk fell silent. That was enough for Maya. She took one tissue, wiped the spit from her cheek, then looked directly at Cole. "You put your hands on me," she said. "You dragged me. You shoved me into that basin, and you still have not asked who I am." Cole folded his arms. "Because it doesn't matter." "It will," he smirked. "Not today." For the first time, Maya let the silence stretch. Not because she had nothing to say, but because she had learned long ago that some men sounded most guilty when they were allowed to keep talking. A maintenance worker standing near the side rail cleared his throat. "Officer, there's a side hallway phone by the loading entrance. Could just call admin. Settle it." Cole shot him a cold look. "Everybody suddenly got an opinion this morning." Then he pointed toward the sidewalk. "Move along. All of you." No one moved quickly. People were unsettled now. Two women standing near the coffee cart whispered to each other while glancing at Maya's soaked coat. "She said she was here for court. She doesn't look homeless. Maybe she's with legal aid. I don't know, but he didn't have to do all that." An older white man in a brown overcoat muttered, "Whole thing's gone too far," but still did nothing. Maya heard all of it. The guessing, the distancing, the quiet relief in some voices that whatever was happening to somebody else. The older woman beside her tightened her mouth. "My name's Gloria Bennett," she said under her breath. "I came for my nephew's hearing. I saw what he did." Maya looked at her. "Thank you, Mrs. Bennett. You know him?" "No," Maya said. "But I know men like him." Cole's face hardened again. "That's enough conversation. You can wait across the street if you've got public business. But you're not stepping near this building again." Maya adjusted her grip on the briefcase. Her coat was wet, her blouse collar twisted, and cold water had soaked through to her skin. But her posture did not break. Inside her briefcase, beneath the legal pad and emergency calendar, lay the temporary assignment order that had brought her there before sunrise. A state judge from another county, called in to preside after the regular judge collapsed overnight. Maya had accepted, because that was what serious people did when the system was under strain. They showed up. They held the line. They carried order into chaos. And now chaos stood in a uniform 3 feet away, breathing hard and calling it security. She could end it with one sentence. "I am Judge Maya Williams." The words rose to the edge of her throat. Then she swallowed them. If you can feel what she's holding back right now, If you've ever seen something unfair and stayed silent, hit like on this video. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? You never know. Someone close to you might be watching this same story at this very moment. And if you want more stories like this where the truth doesn't stay hidden for long, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next. If she revealed herself now, Ryan Cole would change instantly. His tone would change. His posture would change. His fear would arrive disguised as respect. The crowd would change with him. And that would be the lie all over again, not justice, just hierarchy. Maya looked him in the eye. "No," she said quietly. "I'll stay right here." Cole stared at her as if he couldn't believe she still had the nerve to resist. "You want another warning? I want one lawful decision from you this morning." Something flickered across his face, anger sharpened by embarrassment. The crowd was no longer fully his. That bothered him. Men like Ryan did not simply crave control. They needed witnesses to believe in it. He reached for his radio. "Unit at front entrance," he said. "I need assistance removing a non-compliant trespasser." Gloria Bennett let out a stunned breath. "Non-compliant? She's standing there talking calmer than you are." Cole ignored her. Maya turned slightly, enough to see her own reflection in the courthouse glass. Wet sleeve, mud along the coat hem, collar pulled crooked where he had grabbed her. Not ruined, only marked. She had seen women go into courtrooms carrying worse and still speak with dignity. A younger officer emerged through the door moments later, then slowed when he saw the scene. His eyes moved from Maya's soaked clothes to the tipped basin to Ryan's face. "What happened?" he asked. Ryan answered fast. Subject attempted unauthorized entry, refused verbal commands, became confrontational. Maya met the younger officer's eyes. "That is false," she said. He hesitated. Ryan noticed. "You got a problem following procedure?" Ryan snapped. The younger officer straightened at once. "No, sir. Of course not," Maya thought. That was how rot lasted in old institutions. Not always through monsters. Often through witnesses who decided not to make trouble. Gloria stepped forward again. "Young man, I saw this." He never asked her one question. He grabbed her first. Ryan turned on her so fast the younger officer flinched. "One more word, ma'am, and I'll have you removed too." The threat hung there. Gloria fell quiet, but not because she was afraid. Maya could see it in her face. She had gone silent the way older people sometimes did when they understood that speaking again might cost more than it fixed in that moment. Maya drew in one slow breath. The courthouse doors opened behind Ryan as more staff began filtering in. Somewhere inside, phones were ringing. Files were being laid out. A courtroom was being prepared for a judge who, at this exact moment, stood soaked in dirty water outside the building where she was supposed to take the bench. Ryan lifted his chin. "Last chance," he said. Maya looked at him with a steadiness that made even the younger officer glance away. "You still haven't asked who I am," she said. Ryan's mouth curled. "I don't need to." Maya gave the smallest nod, as if he had finally answered the only question that mattered. Then, without another word, she turned her head toward the side entrance, where a silver-haired woman in courthouse black had just stepped into view and gone completely still. Chief Clerk Eleanor Price had arrived, and the look on her face said the morning was about to change. Chief Clerk Eleanor Price stopped so abruptly in the side entrance that the young deputy behind her nearly walked into her back. For one sharp second, nobody moved. Eleanor's eyes took in everything at once. Maya's soaked coat, the tipped basin, the dirty water streaked across the stone. Ryan Cole standing rigid with his radio still in hand. The small crowd of witnesses frozen in uneasy silence. Then Eleanor looked at Maya's face. The color drained from her own. "Oh, dear God," she said. Ryan turned, annoyed before he understood. "Ma'am, this area is being handled." Eleanor did not even look at him. She walked straight past Ryan Cole and down the last two steps with the quick, purposeful stride of a woman who had spent 35 years inside court buildings and had long ago stopped mistaking volume for authority. "Judge Williams," she said quietly. The words landed like a dropped tray in a church. The clerk with the coffee stared. Gloria Bennett's hand flew to her mouth. The younger officer blinked once, then twice. as though he had not heard correctly. Ryan Cole did not move. Eleanor stopped in front of Maya, her voice now low with controlled horror. "Your Honor, I am so sorry." Maya stood straight despite the water soaking through her sleeve and the mud on the hem of her coat. Her briefcase was still in her hand. "Miss Price," she said, calm as ever. "Good morning." Eleanor swallowed hard. "We were told you'd be brought in through the judge's entrance. I just came from chambers. They said there had been a delay, but no one said." Her eyes flicked once toward the overturned basin, then to the twisted collar of Maya's blouse. The rest of the sentence died in her throat. Ryan finally found his voice. "Wait," he said. "What did you call her?" Eleanor turned slowly. Her face had changed. The shock was still there, but something colder had settled over it now, something old and exacting, the kind of anger that did not need to shout because it already knew where all the paperwork was buried. "I called her Judge Williams," Eleanor said, "which is the title due to the woman you just laid hands on." No one on the steps spoke. Ryan's mouth opened, then shut again. "That's not possible." Maya looked at him, not triumphantly, not cruelly, just steadily. "It was possible enough this morning," she said, "when you decided not to ask." Ryan stared at her robeless figure, the wet coat, the briefcase, the scraped hand, as though his mind could not fit those details together with the word judge. He searched her face for some sign that this was a trick, an exaggeration, an escape route. There was none. The younger officer took one slow step backward. Eleanor turned to him first. "Deputy, get a clean towel. Immediately. Then notify courtroom staff that Judge Williams has arrived." He rushed inside without a word. Then she faced Ryan again. "You," she said. "Step away from her." Ryan's jaw tightened. "I was doing my job." "No," Eleanor replied. "You were performing your prejudice in public." His face reddened. "She tried to enter a restricted. She is the emergency presiding judge for this morning's criminal calendar." Eleanor cut in. "The assigned judge was hospitalized before dawn. Judge Williams accepted the reassignment from Lake County at 4:20 this morning. Her credentials were filed. Her assignment order was confirmed. Chambers was waiting for her." Ryan looked from Eleanor to Maya and back again. But the facts only seemed to make him more rigid, not less. She never identified herself. Maya answered before Eleanor could. "You never asked." The silence that followed felt heavier than the January air. Gloria Bennett, still standing a few feet away, shook her head slowly. "Lord have mercy." The young clerk on the upper step stared openly now. He threw a judge into dirty water? No one answered him, because the answer was visible on the pavement. Ryan took a breath, trying to recover the ground slipping beneath him. If she was a judge, she should have said so. Maya's gaze did not waver. "And if I hadn't been?" He said nothing. That was the question that split the morning open. If she had been a public defender, would it be acceptable? A court reporter, a clerk, a defendant's mother, a black woman with no title at all. Ryan Cole had no answer because every answer led to the same rotten center. Eleanor drew herself up. Even in her black flats and courthouse cardigan, she looked suddenly like part of the bench itself. "Judge Williams," she said, softer now, "please come inside. We'll get you cleaned up. We can postpone the docket." Maya's hand tightened around the briefcase. "No," she said. Eleanor hesitated. "Your Honor, no postponement." Ryan looked almost dazed now, but not repentant. Not yet. Fear had begun to rise in him, but it was still tangled up with resentment, the sour disbelief of a man who thought rules belonged to him until they turned and faced him. Maya continued, her voice firm and even. "The court will proceed, but this incident will be documented in full." Eleanor gave a single nod. "Yes, Your Honor." Maya turned toward Ryan. For the first time since he had screamed at her across the steps, there was no audience effect left in him. No swagger, no performance. Only a man standing inside the wreckage of his own assumptions. "You grabbed my collar," Maya said. "You dragged me down these steps. You threatened me. You shoved me into a bucket of filthy water. You did all of that without one lawful attempt to verify who I was." Ryan's throat moved. "I didn't know." Maya's expression did not change. "That is exactly the problem. The younger deputy returned with a white courthouse towel and stopped short again when he saw Ryan standing there speechless. He handed the towel to Eleanor, who offered it to Maya with both hands, almost ceremonially. Maya accepted it and dabbed once at the dirty water on her wrist. The scrape on her palm had begun to darken. Then she looked past Ryan at the courthouse doors. Inside, phones were ringing. Lawyers were arriving. Files were being stacked. A room full of people was preparing to stand when the judge entered, never guessing she had already been shoved onto the pavement outside. Maya spoke without raising her voice. "Miss Price, I need a private robing room, a clean collar if one can be found, and a fresh copy of the emergency docket." Eleanor straightened. "Yes, Your Honor. And one more thing." Eleanor waited. Maya glanced once at the dirty water still spreading across the stone, then at the witnesses gathered around it. "Do not clean this up yet," she said. "Document it." Eleanor's face hardened with grim understanding. "I will." Ryan finally found enough breath to speak again. "You can't seriously be making this into—" Maya turned back to him. "Into what?" she asked. "A record?" He fell silent. That was the language he understood now. Not outrage, not humiliation. Record, statement, evidence, procedure. The tools of the same institution he had hidden behind just minutes earlier. Gloria Bennett stepped closer, her voice steady despite the emotion in it. "I saw what happened," she said. "Every bit of it." The clerk lifted his hand awkwardly. "Me too." Then the maintenance worker near the rail nodded. "Same here." One by one, the silence around Ryan began to abandon him. Maya watched it happen without satisfaction. Only clarity. A courthouse was supposed to be the place where truth entered the room and stayed long enough to matter. This morning, truth had arrived, soaked, bruised, and standing on cold stone. Eleanor stepped beside her. "This way, Your Honor." Maya started toward the side entrance. Her wet coat clung to her arm. Her briefcase, still streaked with grime, hung steady at her side. As she passed Ryan, she paused only long enough to say, "Court begins at 9. Then she walked inside, and for the first time that morning, Ryan Cole understood that he had not thrown a stranger out of a courthouse. He had kept the judge waiting. By the time Maya Williams reached the private robing room off the clerk's corridor, the cold in her bones had settled into something sharper than discomfort. It was not the dirty water soaking through her sleeve or the sting in her scraped palm. It was the insult of delay. The court should have been preparing under her direction already. Instead, Eleanor Price was opening a side cabinet with trembling hands, pulling out a pressed black robe kept for emergencies and visiting judges, while a young staff assistant stood speechless beside the counter, holding a fresh collar tab and a stack of replacement papers. "I can call the administrative judge," Eleanor said. "We can suspend the morning calendar until this is reviewed." Maya set her briefcase down on the wooden table and opened it carefully. The leather was streaked with gray, but the latch still held. Inside, the yellow legal pad was damp only at one corner. Her reading glasses had survived. The emergency assignment order was uncreased. "No suspension," Maya said. Eleanor turned toward her. "Your Honor, with respect, you were assaulted on the front steps." Maya removed her wet coat with slow, deliberate movements. "And, if I delay the docket now, Mr. Cole gets to turn what he did into disorder for everyone else." The assistant swallowed hard. "Do you still want the 9 hearing list, Judge Williams?" "Yes." The girl hurried the papers across the room. Maya accepted them with a small nod, then glanced at the wall clock. 8:39. Enough time. Eleanor stepped closer. She was a woman in her 60s, with silver hair pinned back cleanly, reading glasses hanging from a beaded chain, and the weary precision of someone who had spent decades keeping old institutions from collapsing under their own habits. "This building owes you more than an apology," she said quietly. Maya lifted the clean collar tab and replaced the damp one without looking up. "This building owes the truth a place to stand." Eleanor did not answer at first. She understood the distinction. There was a light knock at the door. A deputy from facilities leaned in, cap in hand. "Miss Price, we photographed the steps before cleanup. Bucket, basin, water spread. Everything. We also flagged exterior camera angles. Good, Eleanor said. Nothing gets erased. The deputy nodded and left. Maya reached for the towel and cleaned her scraped palm more thoroughly. The blood had dried in a fine rust-colored line near the base of her thumb. Not serious. Humiliating, but not serious. She had handled worse injuries in quieter ways across a life in the law, but this felt different because it had happened in public, on stone steps beneath a flag, beneath the seal of a courthouse, beneath the idea of justice itself. A quieter voice moved through her mind. If he had asked one question, none of this happens. But he had not wanted facts. He had wanted obedience. Eleanor laid a printed witness sheet on the table. 3 people have already volunteered formal statements. Mrs. Gloria Bennett, the maintenance worker, and one of the intake clerks. More may follow. They will, Maya said. Eleanor watched her for a moment, then said, Ryan Cole is claiming confusion due to restricted access protocol. Maya gave the faintest, driest look. Did protocol tell him to grab my collar? No. Did protocol tell him to drag me down courthouse steps? No. Did protocol tell him to call me the sort of woman who belongs with a mop and a bucket? Eleanor's mouth tightened. No, Your Honor. Then, protocol is not his defense. That landed with the cold certainty of a gavel. Down the hall, phones rang, shoes clicked. Copy machines started and stopped. The courthouse was trying to continue as if what had happened outside could be folded into the day and filed under regrettable. Maya had seen institutions do that before, not because truth was unclear, but because clarity threatened comfort. The assistant returned with a cup of hot coffee and set it near Maya's papers. Black. No sugar, she said quickly. I asked the coordinator what judges usually prefer. For the first time that morning, Maya nearly smiled. Thank you. The young woman hesitated near the door. Judge Williams, I'm sorry. Maya looked at her. The girl could not have been older than 24. For what? For how fast everybody stood there. Maya held Hargaze. That is how these things survive, she said. Not only through cruelty, through silence around it. The assistant nodded once and stepped out, her eyes wet. Eleanor exhaled slowly. What do you want done with Cole before court? Maya closed the briefcase and straightened the fresh hearing packet. Where is he now? In the security office. Samuel Green is with him. That did not surprise her. Deputy Court Administrator Samuel Green was exactly the kind of man buildings produced when they wanted order without moral courage. Pressed shirt, cautious voice, instincts trained toward containment instead of justice. He's already trying to contain it, Maya said. Eleanor did not pretend otherwise. Yes. Maya rose and shrugged into the black robe. Eleanor stepped forward to smooth the shoulder seam where the wet blouse had pulled unevenly beneath it. The gesture was small, almost maternal, and deeply old-fashioned. When Maya spoke again, her voice was lower. He still thinks this is about embarrassment. Eleanor's hands paused. It isn't. No, Maya said. It's about power used without discipline. She fastened the robe at the front. The transformation was immediate, but not magical. The robe did not give her authority. It revealed it. That was the difference men like Ryan Cole never understood. A knock came again. More urgent this time. Come in, Eleanor said. Bailiff Thomas Reeve stepped inside. Tall, broad, and nearing 60. His posture as steady as old oak. He took one look at Maya, then at the scrape on her hand, and his expression changed from routine readiness to something darker. Your Honor, he said. Courtroom C is full. Defense counsel for the emergency hearing has arrived. So has district counsel. Word is spreading. Let it, Maya said. Thomas gave a brief nod. There's something else. Mr. Green intends to move Cole out quietly before first call. Eleanor let out a bitter sound. Of course he does. Maya did not. No, she said simply. Thomas waited. No quiet transfer. No hallway exit. No disappearing him into paperwork before witnesses are on record. Eleanor looked at her. You want him brought in? Maya picked up her briefcase. The brass corner was still marked from the fall. She ran her thumb once across the scrape. Yes, she said. He wanted this morning handled in public. The room went still. Then let the morning continue in public. Thomas straightened. I'll make the arrangement." When he left, Eleanor gave Maya one long look, half concern and half respect. "You are certain?" Maya met her eyes in the mirror beside the robing cabinet. The woman looking back at her was composed, unsmiling, and no longer damp enough to appear shaken. But the bruising at the base of her neck had begun to darken, where Ryan's fist had twisted her collar. The mark would not show beneath the robe. She knew it was there anyway. "He made a decision about who belonged in this courthouse," Maya said. "Now this courthouse will decide what to do with him." The clock read 8:56. Eleanor opened the robing room door. The corridor beyond was lined with clerks, deputies, and legal staff pretending not to stare. The murmur died the moment Maya stepped out. Bailiff Reeve was already waiting near the courtroom entrance. From farther down the hall came the sound of raised voices, then the scrape of a chair, then silence again. Ryan Cole was being brought up. Maya adjusted her grip on the briefcase and began walking toward courtroom C. At the end of the corridor, above the double doors, the brass letters gleamed in the overhead lights. Criminal Division. By the time she reached them, everyone in the hall had stepped aside. At 8:59, the doors opened, and inside, the man who had dragged her through dirty water was waiting to learn whose courtroom he had tried to guard. Courtroom C was already full when Maya Williams stepped through the side door. The bailiff's voice rang out at once. "All rise." Every person in the room stood. Lawyers straightened. Clerks pushed back chairs. A man in County Orange near the defense table lifted his head in confusion. Family members along the back benches rose more slowly, some still clutching coats and folded papers in their laps. The room settled into that old American ritual of order, the kind built on wood, silence, and the promise that once court began, facts would matter more than noise. Maya walked to the bench without haste. Her black robe fell clean and still, despite the damp blouse beneath it. Her scraped hand rested lightly on the briefcase until she reached the clerk's counter. Then she set it down, took her seat, and looked over the courtroom. The room looked back at her with the strained attention of people who knew something unusual was happening but did not yet know how unusual. Then her eyes moved to the front row on the right. Ryan Cole was seated beside Deputy Court Administrator Samuel Green and a union attorney who had arrived in a rush and was still arranging his files. Ryan had changed nothing about himself except his posture. He sat too straight, jaw locked, as if stiffness could disguise fear. But the color had not fully returned to his face. For one brief second, their eyes met. Maya saw the same man from the steps, the arrogance, the disbelief, the effort to rearrange reality quickly enough to survive it. But now there was something else in him too. Panic. She opened the file before her. "Be seated." The courtroom lowered itself into silence. Maya adjusted the papers once, then looked to the clerk. "Call the first matter on emergency review." The clerk, voice tighter than usual, answered, "Special proceeding on incident documentation and immediate judicial action concerning Officer Ryan Cole, Courthouse Security Division." A ripple moved through the gallery. Ryan stared ahead. Maya did not look at him immediately. She read the caption, the intake summary, the witness notations. Eleanor had rushed into formal order. Then she lifted her gaze. "Appearances." The union attorney rose. "Martin Heller for Officer Ryan Cole, Your Honor." Lena Brooks stood from the opposite table. Lena Brooks, Assistant District Counsel, appearing for emergency institutional review and referral. "Your Honor." Maya gave a small nod. "Very well." Ryan seemed to be waiting for something dramatic, for anger, accusation, humiliation. He did not understand that true authority rarely needed any of those. Maya folded her hands once on the bench. "For the record," she said, "this court is convened on an emergency basis following an incident that occurred at the main courthouse entrance this morning, approximately between 8:15 and 8:25 a.m., involving Officer Ryan Cole and this court's temporary presiding judge." Now the murmuring in the gallery could not be contained. It spread in short, stunned whispers. "That was her? Oh, Lord." He touched the judge. "I told you that wasn't no ordinary woman." Bailiff Thomas Reeve stepped forward. "Order." Silence returned. Maya continued as if nothing had happened. The assigned judge for this morning's criminal calendar was hospitalized before dawn. At 4:20 a.m., I accepted temporary reassignment from Lake County to preside over this morning's docket. My credentials and assignment order were transmitted to this courthouse before my arrival. Due to a maintenance issue affecting the judge's entrance, I approached through the main public security point. She let the facts settle before adding the next line. At that point, Officer Cole made contact. Ryan shifted in his seat. His attorney rose carefully. Your Honor, before we proceed further, I need to note an objection. Given your direct involvement in the incident, there are concerns about impartiality. Maya looked at him without irritation. Your objection is noted. This morning's proceeding is limited to emergency findings, preservation of record, witness intake, immediate employment restriction recommendations, and referral for formal review. Full adjudication beyond the scope of immediate judicial authority will proceed according to reassignment and law. You may preserve every objection for that record. Heller opened his mouth, then shut it again. The law was against him there, and he knew it. Maya turned a page. Officer Cole, stand. Ryan rose slowly. He did not look like the man on the steps now. He looked like a man trying not to drown in a room full of witnesses. Maya's voice remained even. Did you make physical contact with me this morning at the courthouse entrance? Ryan swallowed. Yes, Your Honor. But, did you seize my collar? He hesitated. Yes. Did you drag me down the courthouse steps? His attorney shifted. Your Honor? Ryan answered first. Quieter now. Yes. Did you push me into a wash basin containing dirty water? The courtroom held its breath. Ryan's face tightened. I pushed you away from the entrance. Maya did not blink. That is not what I asked. A long second passed. Yes. The word fell flat and dead in the room. Maya turned slightly toward the clerk. Let the record reflect that Officer Cole has admitted physical seizure, forced removal, and intentional pushing. The clerk's fingers moved quickly over the keys. Maya looked back at Ryan. Before laying hands on me, did you ask for my identification? No. Did you call court administration to verify my stated purpose? No. Did you at any point ask who I was? Ryan's voice dropped lower. No. Maya rested one hand lightly on the bench. There it was, the center of it. Not confusion, not protocol, not security. Decision before fact, judgment before question. You may sit, she said. Ryan lowered himself into the chair like a man much older than he had been an hour ago. Lena Brooks stood. Your Honor, the district requests immediate witness preservation and admission of preliminary testimony from 3 individuals present at the scene, as well as preservation of video, exterior security footage, and internal communications regarding notification failure. Granted, Maya said. Samuel Green shifted uneasily beside Ryan. Maya's eyes moved to him next. Mr. Green, stand. He rose at once. You are Deputy Court Administrator. Were you informed this morning of my emergency assignment? Yes, Your Honor. At what time? A little after 6. And were security supervisors fully notified? Green hesitated. That told the room enough before he answered. Not directly. No. The gallery stirred again. Maya did not raise her voice. So the building knew I was coming. Green lowered his eyes. Yes, Your Honor. But the chain failed. Yes. Then let the record reflect both officer misconduct and administrative notification failure. Green sat down heavily. For the first time, Ryan looked not only afraid, but abandoned. The system he trusted to blur everything had started doing the opposite. It was sharpening. Maya glanced toward Lena Brooks. Call the first witness. Lena nodded. The district calls Mrs. Gloria Bennett. Gloria rose from the second row. One gloved hand pressed to the bench in front of her as she stood. She looked toward Maya first, then toward Ryan, and something in her face hardened into resolve. As she moved toward the witness stand, Maya understood the morning had crossed another line. This was no longer just her word against his. Now the courthouse itself was going to have to hear what it had allowed onto its own steps. Mrs. Gloria Bennett took the witness stand with the careful dignity of a woman who had spent a lifetime walking into rooms that did not automatically make space for her. She was in her late 60s, wearing a navy wool coat over a church dress, sensible shoes, and a small gold cross at her throat. Her purse strap was looped tightly over one wrist. as though even now some part of her expected to be told to move along. Keep quiet. Don't make trouble. Bailiff Reeve held out the Bible. She took the oath in a clear voice. Then she sat. Lena Brooks approached with a yellow legal pad in hand but did not look down at it. She knew the strongest testimony in rooms like this came when people were allowed to sound like themselves. Please state your name for the record. Gloria Ann Bennett. Mrs. Bennett, where were you this morning at approximately 8:20? I was on the lower courthouse steps, Gloria said. I came for my nephew's hearing. Drug case. Possession. I got here early because I don't believe in keeping the court waiting. A few older heads in the gallery nodded at that. Maya noticed. Lena stepped closer. Did you see the interaction between Officer Ryan Cole and Judge Maya Williams? Yes, ma'am. I saw all of it. Ryan shifted in his seat. His attorney placed a hand lightly on his forearm, a silent warning to stay still. Lena's voice remained calm. Tell the court what you saw. Gloria folded her hands in her lap. When she began, her voice shook only slightly. I saw Judge Williams coming up the steps alone with a briefcase. She looked like a working woman on her way to work. Coat on, walking fast, minding her business. Before she could even get through the door, Officer Cole started yelling at her. What exactly did he say? Gloria looked straight ahead. He said, Get out of here. This entrance isn't for people like you. The words seemed uglier now inside the courtroom than they had on the steps. Lena let a beat pass. Did he say anything else? Gloria's mouth tightened. Yes, he said. Black women in that building were there to push mops and empty trash. Said they didn't come in dressed up like they belonged in chambers. A low murmur moved through the gallery again. Bailiff Reeve stepped forward with a warning look, and the room quieted. Lena asked, How did Judge Williams respond? She stayed calm, Gloria said immediately. That's what stood out to me. She didn't scream, didn't curse, didn't go wild. She told him he was making a mistake, told him to call administration, told him he still hadn't asked who she was. Lena glanced at her notes only once. Did Officer Cole ask who she was? No. Did he ask for identification? No. Did he make any effort to verify her purpose for being there? No, ma'am. He just kept insulting her. Ryan's attorney rose. Objection to characterization. Maya's face did not change. Sustained as to characterization. The witness will describe what she heard and saw. Gloria nodded. What I heard was insulting. A faint ripple of restrained approval moved through the room. Lena continued. Mrs. Bennett, did the interaction become physical? Gloria drew in a breath. Yes. Describe that. I saw Officer Cole grab Judge Williams by the collar right here. Gloria touched the front of her own coat near the throat, pulled her in close, got right in her face. I was far enough to see his mouth moving ugly, and close enough to know spit was hitting her. Ryan looked down. Lena's voice sharpened only slightly. Then what happened? He dragged her. Gloria said it plain. No dramatics, no flourish. He dragged her down the steps. The silence in the courtroom deepened. Did Judge Williams strike him? No. Did she threaten him? No. Did she resist, physically? No. She told him to let go. Lena nodded. And after he dragged her, Gloria's hands tightened together. He shoved her into a dirty wash basin by the cleaning cart. Water went all over her coat and bag. She hit the ground hard. The older woman paused then. Not because she had forgotten, but because memory had caught in her throat. Lena softened her tone. Take your time. Gloria gave a small nod. I've seen ugly things in my life, she said. I grew up in Alabama in the 60s. I know the sound a man makes when he thinks another person has no protection. That was the sound he had this morning. No one moved. The line landed with the weight of lived history, and it reached farther than the facts of the case. It touched memory. Generations. The old bruise beneath American civility. Lena did not interrupt it. She let the words settle. Did you speak to Officer Cole after Judge Williams fell? Yes. I told him he had gone too far. How did he respond? He told me to mind my business. Said he could have me removed too. Lena turned one page on her legal pad. Mrs. Bennett, before anyone on the steps knew Judge Williams was a judge, what did you think you were watching? Gloria looked at Maya, then back toward Lena. I thought I was watching a black woman being treated like she had no right to stand where she was standing. That's what I thought. And after you learned who she was? Gloria's face changed, not softer, but sadder. I thought the same thing, she said. Only worse. Because if he could do that to a judge, what's he done to women who don't have a title behind their name? Ryan's attorney stood. Objection. Speculation. Overruled, Maya said. The witness may answer as to her own understanding of the event's significance. Gloria gave a single nod toward the bench, grateful but composed. Lena stepped back. No further questions. Ryan's attorney, Martin Heller, rose slowly and buttoned his jacket. He walked toward the witness stand with the careful smile of a man who knew he had no good facts and would have to settle for friction. Mrs. Bennett, he began. You said you were on the lower steps. Yes. So not directly beside the incident. I was close enough, but not close enough to hear every word clearly. Gloria looked at him the way older women look at men who mistake politeness for weakness. I heard enough. Heller gave a thin smile. You also mentioned growing up in Alabama in the 60s. Would it be fair to say those experiences may make you especially sensitive to perceived discrimination? Lena rose halfway. Objection, Maya answered before she finished standing. Overruled. The witness may answer. Gloria did not hesitate. What I am sensitive to, she said, is meanness dressed up as authority. The gallery went still again. Heller's smile faltered. Mrs. Bennett, is it possible Officer Cole was simply following security procedure? She turned her full attention on him now. Does procedure tell a man to grab a woman by the throat of her coat? No. Does procedure tell him to drag her like she's garbage? Heller shifted. Please just answer the question. I am answering it, Gloria said. And the answer is no. A few people in the gallery lowered their eyes, suddenly aware they were watching something larger than witness testimony. They were watching a citizen refuse to let language clean up violence after the fact. Heller tried once more. You were emotional, were you not? I was awake, Gloria said. That line almost broke the courtroom. Even Maya felt the force of it. Heller glanced back toward Ryan, who looked as if he wanted to disappear into the woodwork. No further questions, the attorney said. Gloria stepped down slowly, one hand on the rail. As she passed the counsel table, she did not look at Ryan. That, somehow, was worse for him than if she had. Lena Brooks stood again. The district calls Calvin Mercer. The maintenance worker from the steps rose from the back row, keys clipped at his belt, work jacket zipped halfway up, shoulders squared with the reluctant courage of a man who had not expected his morning to include choosing between convenience and conscience. As he moved toward the stand, Maya glanced down at the record in front of her. One witness had become two. Soon, two would become a pattern. And patterns were much harder for institutions to bury than single acts of cruelty. Calvin Mercer took the witness stand, with his work keys still clipped to his belt. He was a broad-shouldered man in his early 50s, wearing a county maintenance jacket with a faded name patch over the chest and the look of someone more comfortable fixing broken hinges than speaking into microphones. He kept his cap in both hands until the bailiff told him he could set it aside. He did. Lena Brooks stepped forward. Please state your name for the record. Calvin Mercer. Mr. Mercer, what is your position at this courthouse? Building maintenance. 17 years. That mattered. In places like this, years counted. They built credibility in the ears of older listeners and old institutions alike. Lena nodded. Were you working near the front entrance this morning? Yes, ma'am. I was coming off the loading hallway, headed to check a door alarm by the lobby. Did you see Officer Cole interact with Judge Williams? Yes. Tell the court what you observed. Calvin glanced once toward Maya, then back to Lena. I saw the judge coming up the steps with a briefcase. Looked like she was headed somewhere important and knew exactly where she was going. Officer Cole stopped her before she reached the door. He got loud right away. How loud? Loud enough folks turned around. And what did he say? Calvin shifted his jaw. Said she didn't belong there. Said people like her didn't come through that entrance. Lena let the phrase hang. Did you hear Judge Williams raise her voice? No. Did she behave aggressively? No, ma'am. She stayed calmer than he did. Ryan stared down at the table in front of him. Lena continued. Did you hear Judge Williams ask Officer Cole to verify her identity? Yes. More than once. Did Officer Cole do that? No. Did he call administration? No. Calvin's answers came simple and flat, which made them stronger. He was not trying to sound important. He was trying to sound exact. Lena took one step closer. Mr. Mercer, did the incident become physical? Yes. Describe it. Calvin inhaled once through his nose. Officer Cole grabbed the front of her coat and yanked her toward him. Then he dragged her sideways down the steps. She lost footing once, but caught herself. Then he shoved her into the wash basin next to the cleaning cart. A murmur stirred again in the gallery, quickly cut off by a glance from Bailiff Reeve. Lena asked, "Was Judge Williams striking him at that time?" "No." "Threatening him?" "No." "Did she make any move toward him that would justify force?" Calvin looked directly at Lena. "No, ma'am." Ryan's attorney rose. "Objection. Calls for a conclusion. Sustained as to justification," Maya said. "The witness may testify only to what he observed." Lena nodded. "What did you observe immediately before Officer Cole shoved her?" Calvin answered without hesitation. "I observed a man with a badge getting mad that a woman wouldn't shrink for him." That drew a sharp silence over the room. Lena did not smile, but inwardly she knew the line would stay. "After Judge Williams fell, what did you do?" "I suggested Officer Cole call administration and settle it before it got worse." "And what did he say?" Calvin's mouth tightened. "He said everybody suddenly had an opinion. A few people lowered their eyes. It was the sort of sentence that sounded small until you placed it in the mouth of a man abusing power." Lena glanced at her notes. "Mr. Mercer, before anyone on those steps knew Judge Williams was a judge, what did the situation look like to you?" Calvin took his time. "Looked like he had decided what she was before she opened her mouth. After that, facts didn't matter to him. That went to the heart of it." "Thank you," Lena said. "No further questions." Martin Heller stood and approached with that same careful lawyer's smile that had failed him with Gloria Bennett. "Mr. Mercer, you work maintenance, correct?" "That's what I said." "So, security procedure isn't part of your formal training?" "No." "Then you are not qualified to tell this court what an officer should or shouldn't have done." Calvin looked at him steadily. "Didn't say I was." Heller paused. "You did, however, suggest Officer Cole call administration." "Yes." "Why?" "Because that's what grown folks do before grabbing people." A low sound passed through the gallery and died just as fast. Heller adjusted his tone. "Mr. Mercer, is it possible you're filling in gaps, interpreting Officer Cole's behavior based on emotion rather than fact?" Calvin's face barely changed. "I fix doors," he said. "I know when something's stuck because the mechanism failed, and I know when somebody's forcing it because they're angry. This morning, that wasn't confusion. That was anger." Heller tried again. "You said Judge Williams looked like she knew where she was going. That's subjective." "So is suspicion," Calvin replied. Heller stopped moving for a beat. For the first time that morning, even Ryan turned and looked at the maintenance worker fully, as if only now realizing that ordinary people could become dangerous when they told the truth plainly. Heller cleared his throat. "No further questions." Calvin stepped down from the stand and returned to the back row. He did not glance at Ryan either. Lena remained standing. "The district calls Amanda Ruiz." The young clerk from intake approached the witness stand, clutching her badge lanyard in one hand. She looked barely 25, neat in a charcoal cardigan and courthouse flats, her face pale with nerves. When she passed the front rail, Maya noticed the girl's shoulders were squared too deliberately, as though she had practiced not shaking. After the oath, Lena softened her voice. "Please state your name and position." "Amanda Ruiz, intake clerk, criminal division." "Were you at the main entrance this morning?" "Yes." "What did you see?" Amanda swallowed. "I saw Judge Williams coming toward the door. I didn't know she was Judge Williams then. I just saw a woman in a nice coat with a briefcase. Officer Cole stopped her and started talking to her in a way that felt wrong almost immediately." "Wrong how?" "He wasn't screening her. He was insulting her." Ryan shut his eyes briefly. Lena asked, "Did Judge Williams ask him to verify her identity?" "Yes." "Did he?" "No." "Did you hear him say anything about black women in the building?" Amanda looked down for 1 second, ashamed to repeat it, then looked back up. Yes, he said black women there cleaned floors and pushed carts. He said they didn't belong walking through that entrance dressed like they were important. The shame in her face was not for Maya. It was for herself, for standing there while it happened. Lena seemed to sense that too. Amanda, did you say anything? The young woman's voice dropped. Not soon enough. That line landed differently than the others. Softer. Sadder. Lena let it stand. What happened next? Amanda's hands tightened around each other. He grabbed her collar, pulled her close. He was right in her face. Then he dragged her down the steps and shoved her into the basin. Did you try to intervene? Amanda looked toward Maya now, not Lena. I started to. I told him maybe he should call inside. Her eyes glistened. But when he snapped at me, I backed off. The courtroom stayed quiet. Maya watched the young clerk carefully. Shame could make witnesses unreliable if it was not treated with discipline, but it could also make them honest. Lena asked the final question gently. Why are you testifying today? Amanda drew in a breath that trembled on the way out. Because if I stay quiet now, then I was part of it. There it was again. Not only cruelty, silence around it. No further questions, Lena said. Heller rose for cross, but this time, without confidence. He asked Amanda whether stress could have affected her recollection, whether distance had distorted tone, whether her guilt at not intervening made her testimony harsher now. Amanda answered better each time. No. I feel guilty because it happened exactly the way I said it happened. By the time she stepped down, Ryan looked smaller than he had at the start of the hearing. Not broken yet, but reduced. Lena remained on her feet. Your Honor. The district moves to admit preliminary witness statements into the emergency record and requests immediate preservation of exterior audio-video evidence, staff notification logs, and Officer Cole's incident report before alteration. Granted, Maya said. The clerk entered the order. Ryan's attorney leaned toward him and whispered something urgent. Ryan nodded once, but his eyes stayed on the witness stand. Now empty. 3 witnesses. 3 different ages. 3 different places on the steps. 3 versions of the same truth. Maya looked down at the growing record in front of her. 1 witness could be doubted. 2 could be attacked. 3 began to sound like a system finally hearing itself. Ryan Cole's incident report was brought into the courtroom at 9:24 a.m. It came in a plain manila jacket carried by Deputy Court Administrator Samuel Green, who looked like a man walking paperwork into a fire. He handed it to the clerk, who passed copies forward to the bench and both counsel tables. Maya opened hers first. The room was so quiet she could hear the faint rustle of paper from the back row. She read the first paragraph once, then again, not because it was unclear, but because it was so carefully dishonest. Suspicious female subject approached restricted access point. It began. Subject displayed evasive behavior, refused lawful direction, escalated encounter through non-compliance, necessitating physical escort from secure perimeter. No mention of the collar, no mention of the slur, no mention of the basin, no mention of the fact that he had never asked who she was. Just the clean language of institutional self-protection, pressed flat over violence like a sheet over a broken table. Lena Brooks stood. Your Honor, the district requests that Officer Cole's written report be marked as part of the emergency record. Granted, Maya said. The clerk marked it. Lena turned toward Ryan. Officer Cole, did you write this report? Ryan cleared his throat. Yes. Did you review it before submitting it? Yes. So this is your official account of what happened on the courthouse steps this morning? Yes. Lena picked up the report. In the second line, you describe Judge Williams as evasive. What specific evasive act are you referring to? Ryan sat rigidly. She was trying to get through a restricted entrance without proper clearance. That is not an act. That is your conclusion. What did she do? He hesitated. She kept insisting she belonged there. Lena let the silence sharpen around him. Insisting she belonged there, she repeated. At a courthouse where she had been officially assigned to preside that morning. Ryan's attorney stood. Objection. Argumentative. Overruled, Maya said. Ryan shifted in his chair. At the time, I didn't know that. Lena nodded once. And whose fault was that? Heller was already up. Objection. Withdrawn. Lena said calmly. She had what she wanted already. She moved to the next line. You wrote that the subject refused lawful direction. What direction? I told her to leave the entrance. Did she threaten you? No. Did she attempt to strike you? No. Did she curse at you? No. Then what? Exactly. Made her non-compliant. She wouldn't leave. Lena's voice stayed cool. She asked you to verify her identity. Correct? Ryan looked at the table. Yes. She requested that you call administration. Correct? Yes. And instead of doing that, you grabbed her by the collar. He said nothing. Lena waited. Finally, he answered, yes. The courtroom stayed still, but the stillness had changed now. Earlier, people had been shocked. Now they were listening with the sober patience that comes when the pattern has become undeniable. Lena lifted the report again. Point me to where in this statement you mentioned seizing Judge Williams by the collar. Ryan did not answer. Point me to where you mentioned dragging her down the courthouse steps. Silence. Point me to where you mentioned pushing her into dirty water. Heller rose. Your Honor, counsel is badgering the witness. Overruled, Maya said. Ryan's face had gone tight around the mouth. It's not in there, he muttered. Lena took one step closer. No, it isn't. Because what you filed this morning was not a report. It was a cover. Heller shot up again. Objection. This time Maya paused for half a second before answering. Sustained as to phrasing. Counsel will confine herself to questions. Lena nodded. Officer Cole, did you omit major facts from your incident report? Ryan stared forward. I summarized the situation. Did you omit facts that made your conduct look worse? I wrote what I believed was relevant. That almost drew a sound from the gallery. Lena let him sit in that answer. Then she turned. The district calls for immediate review of the exterior video. Samuel Green shifted sharply beside Ryan. Your Honor, Facilities is still pulling the full feed. Eleanor Price spoke for the first time since the hearing began. The exterior angle from the north pillar is already available. Every eye in the room moved toward her. Green looked irritated. That was not finalized. It is now, Eleanor said. Even seated in the second row, she spoke with the calm authority of someone who had spent too many years watching men confuse delay with management. Maya looked to the clerk. Bring it up. The courtroom monitor flickered on. At first, the image was grainy in the way courthouse cameras often were, more practical than flattering. The front steps appeared in washed winter light. People moved in and out of frame. The wash basin sat near the cleaning cart to one side. Then Maya entered. There she was, briefcase in hand, coat buttoned, pace direct and professional. Nothing hurried, nothing evasive. No furtive glances, no suspicious loitering, no attempt to slip in unseen. She walked exactly like what she was, a person with somewhere lawful to be. The room watched her younger by an hour self cross the frame. Then Ryan stepped in front of her. The video had no clear audio, but it did not need it. Body language told the truth faster than reports did. Ryan's posture was immediate confrontation. Maya's was composed reply. He leaned in first. She did not. He escalated first. She did not. Then came the collar grab. A sound escaped from somewhere in the gallery, small, involuntary, almost like a gasp swallowed too late. Ryan's hand could be seen fisting in the front of Maya's coat. The yank was unmistakable. So was the drag down the steps. And then, the shove. The basin tipped exactly as the witnesses described. Dirty water splashed across the pavement in a gray burst. Maya hit the ground hard enough that even on the silent footage, the violence carried. Nobody in the room moved. The video rolled a few seconds longer, enough to show Gloria Bennett stepping forward, enough to show the maintenance worker lifting a hand, enough to show Ryan standing over Maya instead of helping her up. Then the screen went black. Lena did not speak immediately. She let the room absorb what it had seen. Finally, she said, Your Honor, the district renews its request for full emergency referral, immediate suspension, and preservation of all written and digital records in connection with Officer Cole's conduct and the courthouse notification chain. Granted, Maya said. Her own voice sounded quieter now, not because she was shaken, but because she no longer needed force. The evidence had done the work. Ryan looked as if he had been emptied out from the inside. His attorney leaned close and whispered urgently, but Ryan barely seemed to hear him. His eyes were fixed on the blank screen where the last image of Maya falling had vanished. Not because he was remorseful. Not yet. Because for the first time all morning, he had been forced to watch himself the way other people had. Without the badge, without the shouting, without the lie. Maya closed the incident report and set it aside. 3 witnesses had spoken. The camera had spoken. And now the paper he wrote to save himself had joined the record against him. Whatever happened next, the courthouse could no longer pretend not to know. When the screen went dark, the silence in courtroom C felt heavier than any argument that had been made all morning. Nobody needed the video explained. Ryan Cole's report had said escort. The footage had shown a drag. The report had implied resistance. The footage had shown restraint. The report had hidden force. The footage had made force undeniable. Maya let the silence stand for several seconds before speaking. "Officer Cole," she said. "Stand." Ryan rose slowly. He looked different now than he had even 10 minutes earlier. The swagger that had carried him on the courthouse steps was gone. So was the stiff imitation of control he had worn at counsel table. What remained was something smaller and meaner. A man realizing the story he wrote for himself no longer had anywhere to live. Maya's gaze stayed level. "You have now admitted, on the record, that you seized me by the collar, dragged me down courthouse steps, and pushed me into a basin of dirty water. You also filed an incident report omitting each of those actions. Is that correct?" Ryan swallowed. "Yes, Your Honor." His attorney stood immediately. "Your Honor, my client acknowledges errors in judgment, but we must emphasize the context. This was a fast-moving security situation involving uncertainty, restricted access, and incomplete administrative communication." Maya looked at him. "The court is aware of the administrative failure. The court is also aware that incomplete communication did not force Officer Cole to use racial language, physical intimidation, or unnecessary force." Heller opened his mouth, then closed it again. Lena Brooks rose. "Your Honor, the district requests leave to question Officer Cole on his use of language during the incident." "Proceed." Lena stepped closer to Ryan, but not aggressively. She did not need aggression anymore. The truth had already reduced him. "Officer Cole," she said, "did you tell Judge Williams that black women in this building cleaned floors, pushed carts, and scrubbed toilets?" Ryan's jaw tightened. "I was angry. That was not my question." He looked toward Heller, then back toward the empty witness stand, then finally at Lena. "Yes." The answer moved through the courtroom like a low electric current. Lena did not pause long enough for him to gather himself. "Did you also tell her this entrance was not for people like you?" "Yes." "And when you used that phrase, who exactly were you referring to?" Ryan's face changed. That was the question he had hoped never to hear asked plainly. "I meant..." He stopped. Lena waited. Ryan tried again. "I meant people who didn't have authorization." Lena picked up his report from counsel table and raised it slightly. "Then why does your report never mention an attempt to verify authorization?" Ryan said nothing. "Why did every witness hear you reference race and status before you ever referenced credentials?" Still nothing. Lena's voice remained calm. "Why did you assume she was pretending?" Heller stood fast. "Objection." "Overruled," Maya said. Ryan's breathing had changed. The room could hear it now. The faint roughness of a man cornered by his own words. "I made a judgment call," he said. Lena nodded slowly, as though she had been expecting that. "Yes," she said. "You did." She took one more step. "And what was that judgment based on?" Ryan stared at her. The courtroom waited. His attorney looked ready to object again. But even he seemed to understand there were moments when an objection only drew a sharper circle around the truth. Ryan's hands opened and closed at his sides. He stopped. "Lena did not rescue him." "She what?" "Officer Cole?" Ryan's voice dropped. She didn't look like she belonged there. It was the first fully honest sentence he had spoken all morning. No one in the courtroom moved. Not Gloria Bennett, not Calvin Mercer, Not Amanda Ruiz. Not even Samuel Green, who looked now like a man hearing the final cost of every shortcut he had ever mistaken for management. Lena let the sentence remain in the air before she answered. She didn't look like she belonged there, she repeated. Yet she was the emergency presiding judge. Ryan's face flushed. Lena went on. She was older, professionally dressed, carrying court materials, asking for administrative verification, and behaving calmly. You didn't think she belonged there because of what she was wearing. You didn't think she belonged there because of how she was acting. You decided she didn't belong there because she was a black woman standing in the wrong place for your imagination. Objection, Heller snapped. Sustained as to counsel's conclusion, Maya said. The record will reflect the officer's own statement. Lena inclined her head. That was enough. She changed direction. Officer Cole, have there been prior complaints regarding your conduct with members of the public? Samuel Green shifted so visibly that several people noticed. Ryan answered carefully. Not formal ones. Lena turned toward Green. Mr. Green, stand. He rose like a reluctant schoolboy. Have there been prior complaints regarding Officer Cole's conduct? Green's face was pale. There have been concerns. Answer the question. Yes. How many? Green hesitated. 3 verbal complaints in the last 18 months. 2 written concerns that did not advance to disciplinary review. The courtroom stirred. Lena did not let up. And what were the complaints about? Green looked miserable now. Tone, overreach, aggressive handling of courthouse entrance. Any pattern in who raised those complaints? Heller stood. Objection, relevance. Overruled, Maya said. Green's eyes dropped. They were all from minority visitors or employees. That changed the room again, not because anyone was surprised anymore, but because what had felt like one morning's ugliness now revealed itself as part of something older and dirtier. Ryan looked at Green in disbelief, as if betrayal had just arrived from the very system he assumed would protect him. Maya watched him carefully. This, too, was part of the truth. Men like Ryan rarely believed they were alone until institutions finally stopped lying for them. Lena returned to counsel table, gathered one paper, then looked back up. Your Honor, the district requests that the prior complaint history, administrative notification lapse, incident report, witness statements, and exterior footage all be incorporated into the emergency referral packet. We further request immediate suspension without access to courthouse duties, systems, or reporting channels pending criminal and civil rights review. Granted, Maya said. Heller stood once more, but now his voice had lost its polish. Your Honor, my client has served this courthouse for 12 years. He has no expectation of being treated as though one bad morning defines his entire career. Maya looked at him, then at Ryan. One bad morning does not define a career, she said. A pattern does. No one breathed for a second. Ryan's face seemed to collapse inward, not with remorse, not fully, more with the sick realization that the language he once trusted, misunderstanding, procedure, overreaction, confusion, had all stopped working at once. Maya folded her hands lightly on the bench. Officer Ryan Cole, she said. This court finds probable cause to preserve this matter for formal review, on grounds of assaultive conduct, abuse of authority, discriminatory misconduct, and record falsification by omission. Effective immediately, you are removed from courthouse-facing duties, denied further access to judicial entry points or public screening assignments, and ordered to surrender your access credentials, pending transfer of this matter to the appropriate authorities. Ryan blinked once, as though he had not understood. Bailiff Reeve stepped forward. Badge and access card. Ryan looked at Heller. Heller gave the smallest nod. Slowly, Ryan unclipped the badge from his belt and placed it on counsel table. Then he removed the plastic access card from his inside pocket and set it beside it. The sound was almost nothing, but in that courtroom, it landed like the closing of a door. Maya looked at the items for only a moment before turning back to the record in front of her. The man who had shouted her off the steps that morning no longer controlled a single doorway in the building. And for the first time since the cold air split with his voice, Ryan Cole understood what it meant to be the one told he could not come any farther. For several seconds after Ryan Cole set down his badge and access card, no one in courtroom C moved. The badge lay on the counsel table beside the plastic entry card. Both of them suddenly ordinary things. Metal, plastic, objects stripped of the fear they had carried an hour earlier on the courthouse steps. Maya let the silence hold, not to punish him, not to savor anything. Silence, used properly, made people hear what noise had hidden. Ryan remained standing. Without the badge on his belt, he looked less like an officer and more like what he had always been. Underneath it, a man who had confused permission with character. Martin Heller cleared his throat, as though the room itself had become difficult to breathe in. "Your Honor," he said, "for the record, my client requests that any further findings note the administrative communication failure as a substantial contributing factor." Maya looked down at the file in front of her, then back up. "It will be noted," she said, "because facts should be noted." Heller gave a small nod, relieved by the measured answer. Then Maya continued, "It will also be noted that administrative failure did not place racial language in Officer Cole's mouth. It did not force his hand to my collar. It did not drag me down those steps, and it did not write an incomplete report after the fact." The relief vanished from Heller's face. He sat. Maya turned toward the clerk. "Read back the emergency findings for the record." The clerk's fingers moved over the keyboard. Then she began, voice steady despite the significance of the moment. "Emergency findings of this court. First, that Officer Ryan Cole engaged in physical misconduct toward the temporary presiding judge at the main courthouse entrance on the morning of this date. Second, that he failed to attempt lawful verification of identity or assignment despite verbal requests. Third, that his conduct included discriminatory language as confirmed by witness testimony and officer admission. Fourth, that his written incident report materially omitted major uses of force. Fifth, that administrative notification failure contributed to the circumstances but did not excuse the misconduct. Sixth, that immediate suspension and referral are warranted." The sound of those words entering the official record changed the room again. Outside the courthouse, what had happened on the steps was still a scandal. Inside the courtroom, it had become something harder to escape. Truth on paper. Maya folded her hands. "Mr. Green, stand." Samuel Green rose once more, slower this time. "As Deputy Court Administrator, you are ordered to preserve all records related to this incident. That includes exterior and interior video, staff communications, assignment notifications, security logs, written reports, and prior complaint documentation concerning Officer Cole." Green nodded quickly. "Yes, Your Honor. You are further ordered to transmit those materials without delay to District Council, Internal Review, and the Administrative Judge's Office." "Yes, Your Honor. And one more thing." Green looked up. "No witness intimidation. No pressure. No career threats in hallways dressed up as advice. Not to staff. Not to maintenance. Not to members of the public." The words struck him harder than accusation would have. His face changed, just slightly, in the way of a man forced to confront not only what had happened but how such things were usually buried. "Understood," he said quietly. Maya gave a single nod. "Sit." Green sat. Then Maya looked toward Lena Brooks. "Counsel, anything further from the district at this stage?" Lena stood. "Only this, Your Honor. The district requests written acknowledgement that today's emergency measures are not an act of personal redress, but necessary protection of the record, the witnesses, and the integrity of the courthouse itself." Maya held her gaze for a moment. "Granted." She looked back down at the file, then spoke clearly enough that every person in the room understood she was no longer addressing only the lawyers. "This court is not in the business of revenge," she said. "It is in the business of record, accountability, and lawful response. The robe does not exist to settle personal injury. It exists to ensure that power is restrained by duty." No one shifted. No one whispered. Maya went on. "What happened this morning matters not because of who I am, but because no person standing on those steps should be treated as less human while asking to be heard. If the only thing that makes this incident intolerable is that the victim turned out to be a judge, then we have learned nothing. Gloria Bennett lowered her head and closed her eyes briefly. Amanda Ruiz pressed her lips together, fighting fresh emotion. Even Calvin Mercer, broad and still in the back row, seemed to stand taller hearing it said aloud. Ryan did not look at anyone. Maya turned to him once more. "Officer Cole, you said earlier that I did not look like I belonged here." His eyes lifted, unwilling but unable not to. "I want the record clear on something you failed to understand this morning." Her voice was calm, but every syllable landed with precision. A courthouse does not belong to the men who guard its doors. It belongs to the law, and the law belongs to every citizen who enters seeking justice, protection, judgment, or mercy. Your job was never to decide who counted. Your job was to secure the process by which all people are counted. Ryan's face had gone colorless again. For the first time all morning, he looked less defensive than hollow. Not healed, not humbled enough, but emptied of the certainty that had fueled him. Maya closed the file. "Bailiff, collect the surrendered credentials." Thomas Reeves stepped forward and placed the badge and access card into a clear evidence envelope. The crackle of plastic sounded louder than it should have. "Officer Cole," Maya said, "you are remanded from all courthouse-facing authority pending formal criminal, civil rights, and administrative review. You will have no contact with witnesses in this matter. You will not enter judicial or public screening areas of this building without express authorization. Violation of those conditions will be treated accordingly." Ryan's throat moved. "Yes, Your Honor." It was the first time he had used the title without bitterness in it. Too late, but still different. Maya turned to the clerk. "Set immediate transmission of the emergency record." "Yes, Your Honor." Then she glanced at the clock. The regular criminal docket had been delayed, but not destroyed. Lawyers still waited. Defendants still sat in holding rooms. Families still needed the day to move forward. Justice, if it meant anything, could not stop at the sight of its own injury. Maya straightened in her chair. "This emergency proceeding is concluded. The court will recess for 12 minutes, then resume the morning criminal calendar." That startled the room more than the suspension had. Heller blinked. Lena looked up sharply. Even Eleanor Price, seated in the second row, studied Maya with a kind of grim admiration. Bailiff Reeves stepped forward. "All rise." Everyone stood again as Maya rose from the bench. Ryan remained near counsel table. No longer a gatekeeper. No longer protected by the illusion that his version of events would be enough. As Maya turned toward the side door, she paused only once. Without looking back, she said, "Clean the steps now." Then she walked into chambers to begin the rest of the day. By lunchtime, the story had already left the courthouse. It moved first the way these things always did in a city that claimed to be too busy to pay attention through whispers in hallways, clipped retellings over coffee, text messages sent under desks, and one grainy phone video forwarded from one stunned witness to 3 more before the noon recess was over. By 1 o'clock, local courthouse reporters were standing outside the main entrance with microphones and pressed collars, speaking in measured tones about an incident involving a temporary presiding judge and a courthouse security officer. By 2, radio hosts were asking listeners whether authority had become too comfortable, humiliating ordinary people, and hiding behind procedure. By 3, the city had decided the question was bigger than one officer, and one morning, inside chambers, Maya Williams sat alone for 7 quiet minutes between the close of the criminal calendar and her final administrative signatures. Her coffee had gone cold. It sat untouched on the edge of her desk beside the emergency docket. A legal pad filled in her neat hand, and the leather briefcase she had wiped down twice and still not fully cleaned. The brass corner remained scratched. A faint gray water stain had dried near the lower seam. She looked at it once, then away. There had been no room during the morning session to feel anything fully. Defendants had needed rulings. Attorneys had needed clarity. A mother had cried quietly through a plea colloquy. A public defender with tired eyes had thanked the court for a continuance she clearly needed. The work had gone on because the work always went on. That, too, was part of the American courthouse religion. People bled in private, then took the bench, the podium, the witness stand, the holding cell, the jury box. A soft knock came at the chamber door. "Come in." Eleanor Price entered carrying a thin folder, and the look of a woman who had spent the last 3 hours watching an old building decide whether it still had a conscience. "The administrative judge has reviewed the emergency record," she said. "The referral package has been transmitted. District Council has confirmed receipt. Internal Affairs is already requesting the exterior video and the prior complaint files." Maya nodded once. "Good." Eleanor hesitated. "The press is outside." "I assumed they would be. They've asked whether you intend to make a statement." Maya leaned back slightly in her chair. The robe was open now at the collar, revealing the faint darkening at the base of her throat where Ryan Cole had twisted the fabric into her neck. "No statement today." Eleanor gave a quiet nod. "That may be wise." "It isn't strategy," Maya said. "It's proportion." Eleanor's expression softened. Maya looked down at the folder in Eleanor's hands. "What else?" Eleanor crossed the room and laid it on the desk. 3 more staff have agreed to submit written statements. 2 concern this morning. 1 concerns prior conduct by Cole at the screening point. Mr. Green has also surrendered archived complaint notes that were never formally advanced. Maya opened the folder. The first statement was from a deputy clerk who had seen Ryan Cole challenge a black public defender 3 months earlier over an ID badge he had not required from a white associate standing beside him. The second came from a Spanish-speaking interpreter who described being stopped, questioned, and told she didn't look staff, despite wearing a county badge. The third was older, a receptionist's memo noting overly aggressive conduct and needless escalation with female visitors of color. Maya read each one without comment. Pattern, that was what mattered now. Not because pattern made her pain more important, but because it proved her pain had never been the point. The point was that Ryan Cole had been allowed to become himself in public because too many people had mistaken repeated warning signs for manageable discomfort. Eleanor stood with her hands folded. "Mr. Green would like to know whether you want him to prepare a temporary statement for courthouse staff." Maya looked up. "What kind of statement?" "The usual sort. Commitment to professionalism. Ongoing review. Public trust. Safe workplace. All the words institutions prefer when they are ashamed, but not yet ready to say of what." The corner of Maya's mouth moved, not quite into a smile. "Tell him to leave out the phrases that mean nothing." Eleanor's eyebrows lifted. "Specifically, not regrettable misunderstanding, not unfortunate interaction, not breakdown in communication." Maya closed the folder. This was abuse of authority. If the building cannot say that, then the building is still lying. Eleanor took that in with visible satisfaction. "I'll tell him." She turned to go, then paused at the door. "Mrs. Bennett is still downstairs." Maya looked up. "Gloria Bennett? She says she'll leave when she knows you've eaten something." For the first time all day, Maya laughed softly. It hurt more than she expected. "Bring her in." A minute later, Gloria Bennett entered chambers holding a brown paper bag and a paper cup in a cardboard tray. She looked less like a witness now, and more like exactly what she had been all along. An older woman who had decided decency did not require permission. "I know judges are busy," Gloria said, "but busy women still need lunch." Maya stood. "You did not have to do this." "Yes, I did," Gloria replied. "You ain't the only one who knows what kind of day this has been." She set the bag down on the desk and opened it. A turkey sandwich on wheat, a small bag of chips, an apple. The plain, practical lunch of someone who believed comfort should be useful before it was elegant. "I asked around," Gloria said. "One of the girls downstairs said judges don't get much time, so I told the deli to keep it simple." Maya looked at the sandwich as though it were something unbearably kind. "Mrs. Bennett." "Gloria," the older woman said. Maya nodded. "Gloria." Gloria looked at the bruise at Maya's throat, and then away. Not out of discomfort, but respect. "I've been thinking about what you said in court," she said. "About how it shouldn't matter who the woman was." Maya sat slowly. "It shouldn't." Gloria lowered herself into the chair across from the desk with the creak and resolve of age. "But it did matter too." Maya met her eyes. "How?" "Because he thought he picked somebody nobody would defend." Gloria folded her gloves in her lap. "And instead, he found out dignity can sit higher than he ever imagined." The room went quiet. Outside the chamber windows, the city moved on in traffic and sirens and winter light. But in that room, the moment settled somewhere deeper. Maya unwrapped the sandwich. Her hands were steadier now. Gloria glanced toward the briefcase. "He get water in your papers?" "Only the edges." "Good. Hate to see a good bag ruined." "It was a gift from my mother." Gloria nodded, as if that explained why Maya had protected it first. "Some things carry your whole life in them," she said. Maya took one bite, then set the sandwich down again. "Gloria," she said, "why did you step in?" The older woman answered without hesitation. "Because I'm too old to keep calling silence wisdom." That line stayed in the room. Maya thought of Amanda Ruiz, young and ashamed, of Calvin Mercer, plain-spoken and steady, of Eleanor Price, angry in the disciplined way of people who had watched institutions fail for too long. She thought of all the times truth survived because one person, then another, decided to stop helping power hide. A light knock sounded again. Eleanor reappeared. "Pardon me. The administrative judge has approved immediate policy review pending formal findings." She held up a draft memo. "Mandatory verification before force. Temporary suspension review standards. Witness protection language. Emergency assignment notification overhaul." Gloria let out a low breath. "Well," Maya reached for the memo and read the first page. It was not justice completed. Nothing ever was. But it was something real. Systems, beginning, reluctantly, to confess the shape of their own failure. "Good," Maya said. "Put it in writing before anyone changes their nerve." Eleanor nodded. As she left again, Gloria rose from her chair and gathered her gloves. "I'll let you get back to being important." Maya stood too. "No," she said gently. "Back to being useful." Gloria smiled at that. At the door, she paused and looked back. "That officer thought the bench made you powerful," she said. "He still doesn't understand. The bench just made everybody else see it." Then she walked out, leaving Maya alone with her cold coffee, the scratched briefcase, the half-eaten sandwich, and the first honest quiet the day had offered her. On the other side of the courthouse walls, reporters were still talking. Staff were still whispering. Paperwork was still moving from office to office, carrying truth into channels that once would have buried it. And for the first time since dawn, Maya let herself believe that what had happened on those steps might not end as another ugly story people survived and forgot. It might become a line the city finally refused to cross again. The courthouse was nearly empty by the time Judge Maya Williams stepped back into courtroom C. The afternoon light had shifted. What had been hard and pale in the morning now fell warmer through the high windows, stretching long bands across the polished wood and the rail where people had stood all day, waiting to be seen, heard, sentenced, forgiven, delayed, or told to come back and try again. The room no longer held the pressure of spectacle. It held only its bones. That was when Maya liked a courtroom best, not when it was full of eyes and arguments, but when the echo of the day had settled and the room had returned to what it really was, a place where human beings brought the mess of their lives and asked the law to do better than instinct. Bailiff Thomas Reeve was collecting the last loose files from counsel table when he noticed her in the doorway. "Evening, Your Honor." His voice carried the old formality of a man who understood that respect meant steadiness, not performance. "Evening, Mr. Reeve." He glanced toward the bench, then toward her briefcase. The brass corner still bore its scrape. The stain near the seam had faded, but not disappeared. "Need anything before I lock up?" Maya looked around the room once. "No, I just wanted a minute." Thomas gave a short nod. "I'll be just outside." When he left, the door clicked shut with a softness that seemed kinder than most sounds had been that day. Maya walked slowly toward the bench. She set the briefcase down on counsel table first, then rested her fingertips on the wood edge of the rail where Gloria Bennett had stood waiting to testify, where Amanda Ruiz had passed with shame on her face and courage in her spine, where Calvin Mercer had sat like a man surprised to find that plain truth could carry more authority than polished lies. So much of justice, she thought, depended on ordinary people deciding not to look away. She moved behind the bench and stood there without sitting. The chair was still angled slightly from the last matter on the criminal calendar. The legal pads were gone. The water glass had been cleared. The room had been reset for tomorrow, because institutions, for all their failings, were built around the hope of another morning. Maya let one hand rest on the back of the judge's chair. This morning, Ryan Cole had seen a black woman on courthouse steps and believed the deepest fact about her would be whether she belonged. He never asked who she was, because he had already decided what she was. That had been the true violence before the collar, before the drag, before the basin. The hand had followed the assumption. The humiliation had followed the entitlement. The lie had followed all of it. What changed the day was not that she turned out to be powerful. What changed the day was that the truth had been forced into the open before the building could arrange itself around comfort. She thought of Gloria's words in Chambers. He thought he picked somebody nobody would defend. That had stayed with her, because that was the hidden engine beneath so much cruelty. Not just hatred, calculation. The quiet belief that some people could be handled roughly because the world would not stop long enough to care. Maya looked out over the empty benches. "If the only thing that saves you is your title," she said softly into the room, "then the law is still sick." No one answered, of course. But courtrooms had a way of holding words, especially honest ones. She closed her eyes for one moment and saw the morning again in fragments. Gray water flying from the tipped basin. Eleanor Price going white at the side entrance. Ryan's badge laid on the table like a dead thing. Gloria Bennett, with a sandwich in a paper bag. Amanda's quiet confession that she had not spoken soon enough. Calvin's rough voice refusing to let anger call itself confusion. Then another thought rose, older and sadder. How many women had stood on public steps in good coats and working shoes, holding their dignity together with both hands, while men with smaller souls called them out of place? Too many. Maya opened her eyes again. The bruise at the base of her throat had deepened under the collar line. Her palm still stung when she flexed it. She was tired in the way people were tired after doing more than their bodies had agreed to at sunrise. But the exhaustion sat differently now. It was no longer only injury. It was aftermath. And aftermath, at least, meant the event itself had not won. There was a quiet knock at the door. Thomas eased it open halfway. "Sorry to interrupt. Reporters are finally clearing out." Maya turned slightly. "Good." He hesitated. "Administrative judge's office sent word. Policy drafts moving tonight. Temporary name on it is Entry Verification Reform." Maya almost smiled. Temporary names have a way of becoming permanent if the paperwork is strong enough. Thomas nodded. "That it does." He lingered a second, then added, "For what it's worth, ma'am. Some of us been in these buildings a long time. We know the difference between authority and character." Maya met his eyes. "I know." That seemed to matter to him. When he withdrew again, Maya picked up her briefcase and came around the bench one final time. She paused near the spot where Ryan Cole had stood while his own words closed around him. Without the badge, without the posture, without the doorway behind him, he had looked like what most frightened men looked like when power stopped cushioning them, smaller than the harm they had done. She did not feel triumph at that memory. Only order. Justice did not require delight. Only accuracy. At the courtroom door, Maya stopped and looked back once more. The room was empty. The record was not. Tomorrow another judge might sit here. Another defendant might tremble. Another mother might pray. Another lawyer might stall for time. Another citizen might step through these doors wondering whether the law would see them as fully as their pain did. That was always the question. Maya adjusted the briefcase in her hand. The cruelest thing about prejudice was never that it failed to recognize power. It was that it failed to recognize personhood. And the law, if it deserved to call itself just, had to answer that failure before it answered anything else. She turned off the bench light. The room dimmed. Then Judge Maya Williams walked out of courtroom C and into the quiet corridor beyond, carrying the scratched briefcase, the ache in her throat, and the one thing Ryan Cole had not been able to strip from her on those cold stone steps, her place. This story reminds us that true justice should never depend on a person's title, status, or power. Every human being deserves dignity, fairness, and respect the moment they step into any public space. It also teaches that prejudice often hides behind authority and procedure, which makes it even more dangerous. Most importantly, the story calls on ordinary people not to stay silent when they witness wrongdoing, because courage, truth, and accountability are often the only things strong enough to stop abuse of power. Thank you for staying with this story until the very end. If it touched your heart, I would truly love to hear your thoughts on the storytelling, the emotional pacing, or whatever stayed with you after listening. Every comment you share helps make the next stories more honest, moving, and meaningful. And if you have a powerful or meaningful story of your own, please do not hesitate to send it to the channel. It may become the next story to touch and inspire thousands of others. This video is a work of fiction created with the assistance of artificial intelligence. All characters, events, and situations are not real and do not represent any actual people or true stories. The content is intended for storytelling and emotional illustration only.